Good morning, guys. Bill McMillan here with NDWX.com. Tuesday morning, about 7:15, and the overall pattern is one that we're highly confident in and one that should offer up some much-needed rain for portions of the region as we go into the latter parts of the week and on into the weekend. We have an approaching cold front out of the plains region, and then tropical moisture associated with an area of low pressure sitting and spinning along the north-central Gulf Coast right now that will eventually begin to move north and eventually northeast. The way these two ingredients combine will ultimately dictate exactly kind of who sees the heaviest rain. We're confident in the overall pattern, but we caution that we still have some fine-tuning to do in regards to the heaviest plume of moisture as we go into the upcoming weekend. We'll do that, though, as we go through the next few days. This morning's water vapor image is actually kind of telling in that it's beginning to show what we're going to see that's going to lead to that potentially heavy rain this weekend. We have that area of low pressure on the north-central Gulf Coast. By the way, it will create, unfortunately, localized flash flooding along the northern Gulf Coast as we go through the next day or two. Eventually, again, we'll have that cold front drop out of the plains, and where those two combine will ultimately determine who sees potentially some flooding issues in the Ohio Valley on into the northeast region as we go through the upcoming weekend. We'll take a quick look here at the upper air pattern off of the European ensemble from the overnight run and put this into motion, and we will deal with heat and humidity building as we go through the next couple of days. But thankfully, it won't last very long. We're going to turn much cooler over the upcoming weekend and, again, increasingly wet as well. Putting this into motion will offer up the shot of cooler, refreshing air to wrap up the weekend and start next week. And really, this is a pattern, again, guys, that just doesn't scream any sort of prolonged heat locally. It continues to suggest the ridge axis is back across the western portion of the country, and this is a rather unsettled look. Now, obviously, the models have been struggling with this pattern and the specifics associated with it. Several of you I'm hearing from you need rain. I need rain as well, of course, but let's also remember that we have had this kind of that blanket statement of the haves and have-nots, and that's what we've been seeing last week. Several portions of central Indiana received, some locally heavy rain, while neighborhoods neighboring those areas didn't see a drop of rain. So that's just kind of how this goes. Now, thankfully, what we believe is happening this weekend is a much more uniform, beneficial soaking rain for many of us coming in here. We've got moisture on the increase today, and it'll offer up the chance of scattered showers, particularly across southern and southeastern portions of the state. As we go through the next day or two, this really is not going to be a big deal. I think most of us stay dry. It's as we go into late this week and this weekend that the more widespread rains of significance move in. We'll take a look at the GFS and put this into motion. Again, the focal point for the next couple of days will be across the southeast and the northern Gulf Coast as this area of low pressure sits and spins and produces some localized flooding. But the interaction of an approaching cold front and that area of low pressure and tropical moisture certainly have to raise an eyebrow for the prospects of heavy rain and potentially some localized flooding across interior regions, including the Ohio Valley, as we go through the upcoming weekend. Now, forecast models are still in a bit of disagreement in the handling of the specifics, obviously, but again, the overall pattern is one that certainly screams a wetter look overall. Now, precipitable water values are this is a tool that we use to measure just the available moisture to tap into, scream a locally heavy rain threat again this weekend. Don't be surprised as these ingredients kind of interact and we get more confident on exactly where the heaviest rain sets up for some flash flood and flood watches to be issued for the upcoming weekend as well, given some of the data that we're looking at. Now, the GFS ensemble members are beginning to hone in on the Ohio Valley as kind of a secondary area for heaviest rain. Obviously, the first area is going to be across the northern Gulf Coast. But you can see here there's some agreement as this moisture kind of curls around to the north and eventually northeast, again, as that cold front sags southeast, for central Indiana and a large part of the Ohio Valley, obviously, to be in play for locally heavy rain this weekend. So that just continues to up our confidence in a heavy rain threat this weekend. Thankfully, obviously, we've got the hot, humid weather over the midweek and late week stretch that we'll deal with. Low 90s a good bet. I think that's probably going to be about the maximum that we see due to the high humidity values. No doubt it'll feel close to 100 with the heat indices out there, though. But much cooler air builds in over the weekend, and that remains with us early next week as well. Guys, make it a great Tuesday. Keep it locked to IndyWX.com. We'll keep you updated here and also on social media, and we'll talk with you soon.